Blockchain's Online Live is an online live-streamed broadcast talk show about blockchain, AI, and green technology. We bring inspiring speakers and innovative thought leaders together to talk about current and future developments within these exciting new fields. Join us to learn how we can use these disruptive technologies to better aid humanity and strive for a fair, secure, humane, and positive future. Get involved in our community and share your opinions and ideas. Together, we can make a difference. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockchain's Online Live. My name is Holly Hilton, and today we are going to discuss how to finance the SDGs with blockchain technology. Today is my first time actually to host this program, and I'm honored to have been asked. I come from a performer background. I'm a writer and a moderator, and I do that in the live entertainment industry. So I am very much coming from the background of a average citizen who is interested in how emerging technologies can help us impact social good for the better, and how we can realistically achieve the goals of solving our global grand challenges sooner rather than later. So this is why today's topic really interests me. But before I introduce you to our guest today, I want to just remind you that Blockchain's Online Live is an open platform, and we encourage you to be part. So join us. Throughout the show, you can send us questions in the live chat here, or you can reach us through Telegram. So join us and participate. Your input is really wanted and desired. Also, I just want to let you know that a little bit later on, we're going to be giving you some information about a ticket giveaway for the Blockchain's Europe 2021 conference. We're €300. So stay tuned to find out how you can register to win at the break. So let's get to today's hot topic, how to finance the SDGs with blockchain technology. And today we have the very esteemed Professor, Dr. Stefan Brunnhuber. And Dr. Brunnhuber, which I will now call him Stefan for the rest of the show, is a full international member of the Club of Rome. He is the only German member appointed to the Lancet Commission on Green Recovery post-COVID under Jeffrey Sachs. And he is also the project director at the World Academy of Science for the working group Financing Our Future. Welcome, Stefan.
Welcome. Hello, everybody.
Hi. I have to say, you also have a list of credentials and accolades that are so long, we would spend the entire 45, 50 minutes doing that. So it's a real pleasure for us to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bob, for having me in your show. I'm looking forward to discuss this important topic with you. You know, I remember we started years ago with the blockchains. I was invited to Hamburg, and we had these first meetings in these containers.
Yes.
Every year there was an improvement. Now we have a digital format, and exciting to share our ideas with you very much.
Absolutely. Very exciting. I know you have a ton to say on this subject, so I want to cut right to it. Maybe you can just give us the lay of the land first, and then a little bit later we can take some questions and we can discuss a little bit. But first, just tell us everything that you know so that we can get a grasp of what's going on here.
Yeah. My idea is I give you a short intro of about 15, 20 minutes on the topic from our perspective. And when I say our perspective, I mainly mean what a working group at the World Academy of Arts and Science tried to do with this topic. And I actually sent to Conrad a PDF. Maybe he can show me the first slide, and then we could just go through the slides.
Sure.
And is that okay? Oh, that's wonderful.
That's great. Okay,
super. So, you know, in September 2015, next slide, in September 2015, world leaders met at the UN, okay, and they signed in for these SDGs. And the interesting part of this whole process ever since is that we have the technological know-how to achieve them as a roadmap for humanity. We have the political consensus to do it. And we have the entire scientific evidence on how to do it. There was one question we missed out over the last years in this entire process is how can we finance all that? Next slide. And if you put this in a kind of getting the figures right, so we're talking about roughly about 5,000 billion, so 5 trillion US dollars equivalent every year over the last 15 years. That's what we're talking about. This graph just shows you the different magnitude and volumes of other assets we're involved in, and the SDGs are roughly about 5 trillion. Could be a little bit more or less, but this is what we're talking about. Next slide. And the question we're trying to answer is, how are we going to address these SDGs in an out-of-a-box approach? Because, you know, the traditional way of looking at finance and SDGs is basically we have a value chain, and this orange arrow reflects an arrow, the global value chain, you know, and this value chain is running through pandemics and global warming and loss of biodiversity and a lot of damage control. And at the end of that value chain, we basically fee and tax this value chain in order to finance our future. And on the other side, we have the shadow economy, which feeds into that value chain, but pulls the value chain in the wrong direction. And if you look at the data, you can clearly say that this traditional way of looking at finance and sustainability, and in specific with regard to blockchain getting later on, is far too low. The figures are too slow, and they're not targeted enough, and they're partially neutralizing each other. For example, the subsidies on one side and the taxation on the other side. So this whole mechanism is completely inefficient. Next slide. So why is financing SDGs, before we go into the blockchain part, why financing SDGs is so difficult? First, we're talking about a huge amount of money, 5 trillion US dollars. And we're talking about a system, a financial system, which is extremely unstable. Unstable means banking crisis, state failure crisis, currency crisis. Empirically, we have about 10 events every year somewhere on the planet where something doesn't work. And we have multiple so-called lock-in effects. A lock-in effect is we try to do something good, but it's sterilized by something bad, right? And if we follow this pathway, Molly, I showed you in the previous slides, and of end of pipe, it will take us about 100 years to finance SDGs, you know? And there's another thing which makes financing SDGs extremely kind of a wicked problem. It is that whereas about 1/3 of these SDGs and their sub-targets are eligible for private investors, which is a good thing, 2/3 are not. 2/3 are global commons. We should avoid and prevent privatizing our commons. And in addition, we have all the black market illicit transactions that pulls away money from our green future. Next slide. We got to look at this from a much broader perspective. You know, this talk is more academic, you know, so you got to go through this with me for the next 10, 15 minutes, and then we start the discussion. You know, if you go into a textbook on sustainability, you basically find this triad of economics, of sustainability, and social, this triangle. And in every textbook, there is this saying we have to find a common denominator between the three. But this picture, so to say, is a false narrative. It's a wrong frame. It's a wrong picture. Next slide. We got to look at it from a different perspective. It's the whole thing, if it comes to sustainability and finance, it's more like a funnel. It's more like an attractor, where the environment is the outer part, and then the social world and the economic world, and at the center, we have the design and the architecture of the financial system determining all the rest. So if the attractor is false, the rest doesn't work. Next slide. So let's look at this attractor. You know, money is not a thing. Money is, and finance is not an actual law. If you ask an investor, if you ask a corporate guy, they will tell you finance drives sustainability. That means whenever there's money available, some sort of sustainability issues are going to be accomplished. But when there is no money, there's no sustainability. It actually should be the other way around. Sustainability drives finance. And this Western view on money and finance is depending on the idea that we first have to tax and borrow money from somewhere before we spend it. And that's a myth. We have to think differently about it. We have to learn that we turn all these financial engineerings which are out there, which are considered to be weapons of mass destructions, into tools of massive social and ecological investment. And here then blockchain will become a crucial component of it. And suddenly we have almost unlimited options possible in order to achieve SDGs. Next slide. So what we have to do, we have to start to think differently. Instead of just using this traditional way of linear thinking of value chain and taxing and end of pipe, let's think parallel. Let's think in a different way about financing SDGs. And this green arrow basically signals a path which running in parallel to the given value chain and can provide, in specific, if it's digitalized, a form of finance, a form of providing liquidity and purchasing power to fund SDGs. And our question for our working group was, does that happen already? Is it just an academic kind of idea, or does that happen already in the real world? And the next slide shows you that in fact, we have already 3 main examples where this is happening. Top down, it's happening as so-called central bank digital currencies. We have dozens of central bank digital currencies currently in a sandbox approach, showing that digital currencies running kind of in parallel are happening already. And you will see that in September to October this year, the Chinese yuan will have such a digital blockchain associated currency running already. But this is the top-down approach. The bottom-up approach has two major fields. One is the cryptocurrency. We have several thousand of them now. They have a high market capitalization, but they're mainly private currencies. They provide private liquidity, like Ether or IOTA or Bitcoin. And we have a 75 history of so-called regional community currencies. There's over 3,000 in the world. They're running on a local level, and they demonstrate that parallel economic systems are possible. If you take this finding and use the next slide, the question is, why is such a dual digital currency a relevant parameter in financing SDG, and why blockchain can play a crucial role? And the first is that if we introduce such a dual digital currency, we start increasing the measures, the reporting, and the data in the system. And we know from empirical science that datafication is increasing efficiency because we have more information, we have more wisdom, we have more assistance in order to make the right decisions. The second point is we don't redistribute money at the end of that value chain, but rather pre-distribute the money exactly with targeted liquidity using basically smart contract blockchain algorithms to allow directly funding and financing SDGs. And this can create multiple positive feedback loops. We've been identifying about, on the macroeconomic level, about 36 to 40 positive feedback loops that basically pull the world economy from the fossil brown industry towards the green industry. Next slide. You know, I showed you this graph to begin with. And in the next slide, you see, we are in favor of riding a bike with 2 wheels instead of a unicycle. A dual currency system based on a digital currency and running through blockchain technology. Let's zoom into this funnel there on the right, which is shown in the next slide. And let's identify the major components necessary a distributive ledger technology can provide. So we have now a data-enriched marketplace with a smart contract, which is mainly or semi-permissive and semi-regulated and can provide very fast additional liquidity to finance SDGs. And here suddenly the blockchain technology kicks in with all its impact and power to enable that. It increases transparency and trust and traceability. You know, the transactions become immutable. So there is no free rider, no bribery. There's no money laundering. Suddenly, those who issue that money regain control of the entire process. We have better risk analysis because of more data and more info. We are becoming more conscious consumers because we can identify the entire value chain from the beginning to the end. And we can much better manage spillovers and negative externalities and create a parallel digital token economy that rather reflects the future than the past. But this requires a paradigm shift in thinking rather in technology. We have the technology, we have the political will, we have the data, and we have the science. Next slide. So if you look at this parallel system, and if you look at it saying we're trying to ride a bike with 2 wheels, where the second wheel is steering towards the green future, using blockchain technology, enabling to finance SDGs, we can actually identify multiple additional new out-of-the-box financial engineerings to allow that. I give you 2 or 3 examples. One is a harvest default swap, where blockchain basically identifies 100 million farmers in India on an iPhone with weather indexed insurances, and whenever they are authorized because of heat or extreme weather to get additional liquidity, they will send this additional liquidity on their cell phone. Or digital cash transfers directly to overcome hunger and poverty. Or a venture capitalist who wants to invest in a hospital chain in Sub-Sahara, but who doesn't allow to do that because he needs a de-risking instrument in order to invest his billions there. State guarantees running through this parallel liquidity can allow that. So we identified about 15 or 20 additional financial tools which are based on blockchain technology and allow us to shift from fossil to green and from hunger to basic needs. And this will finally also slow down and end or reduce the impact of shadow economy on our future. Next slide. You know, Molly, I think when we're talking about financing SDGs and financing SDGs through blockchain technology, and we start thinking about it from a different perspective, we end up in a holistic non-regret approach, where new stakeholders appear. It has impact on the informal sector, on war and peace, on stability, on fiscal policy, on migration, on the impact of the public and the private purse, and etc., etc. Next slide. If you have time to read our report, which has actually come out yesterday or the day before, it's available on Amazon, we're trying to answer additional questions, like if this additional liquidity is generated, is it inflationary? I can tell you it's not inflationary. Does it have an anti-cyclical property, balancing out our unstable fossil industry with a green marketplace? How can we tackle anonymous non-custodial transactions? And is it feasible? And I can tell you this or a very similar mechanism. Next slide, which is the last slide. This or a very similar mechanism is very likely to be the mechanism we need in order to finance SDGs. And in this mechanism, which is going to be a data-enriched green future marketplace, big data analysis, deep learning, artificial intelligence, and specific features of blockchain are key to achieve that. And if you want to know more about it, just click on the internet on these terms, financing our future. And the reason, last sentence, why we called it the Tao of Finance initiative of the World Academy is because it requires a shift in mindset. It's not about Western linear causal thinking. It's about yin and yang. It's about complementarities. It's about parallel thinking. This is why this blockchain-based and blockchain-associated parallel system is kind of more of an Eastern approach. It's kind of a Tao of finance. So this is my intro, and I'm looking forward to have an interesting discussion on it, Molly. Thank you.
Excellent. It's a lot of information. It's really great information that you've given us there. I'm interested in this idea of we talked a little bit earlier, you and I, that you've been going around telling people about this, and you've been working on this for several years now, and you're spreading this message. Who is listening?
Who
do we need to listen?
No. It's first of all, political bodies, monetary regulators, and central banks are listening. Academics are listening. Tech industry are listening. And first and foremost, investors are listening. Do you know why?
Why?
Because they're sitting on a carbon bubble, which is melting down every day because of negative interest rate and because of the fact that the future is not going to be fossil but green. So they got to get rid of that stuff. On the other side, they have the responsibility to create an asset and to create wealth that allows them to feed the pensions of the baby boomers of the next 10, 20, 30 years. So we have to come up with mechanisms that allow to reconcile the traditional way with the future way. And this parallel system is, or very similar to this parallel system, this is the way how we are going to finance our future.
It's hopeful.
Yeah.
It sounds very hopeful. I'm glad a lot of those people are listening, because you said here we have the tech people, the political will, the data, and the science. Everybody in those departments are starting to perk up and pay attention and say, okay, this makes sense. We should do this. And now we have to encourage this kind of shift in thinking.
Yeah.
Where does that occur? That's a question I have.
Exactly. It's not a matter of information. It's not a matter of technology at the end. It's at the end not even a matter of political consensus. It's a matter of changing your mind shift from an end of pipe linear thinking to a parallel thinking. And we can show, we've been just recently in contact with the industry, and I explained that to the fintech industry, and they said, Steve, this is from a technical perspective. We can do that in 18 months for Europe with less than 200 staff. Don't worry. Really. Corruption free. with blockchain and AI, etc. 18 months. It's peanuts, technically.
Who said this?
This comes from the corporate world. So financial retailers who are doing this all over the world on a digital base, and I presented that to their boards, and they said, well, if you have the political go, we can do that in 18 months for Europe on a country level. So the problem is not so much the technology, the problem is the thinking. And I would even try to formulate it in the way, not using this or a very similar mechanism to this is just going to be extremely expensive for our political system in the Western world and for our economic system in the Western world. So it's less a moral question. It's less of an ethical question, whether you like it or not, but more a political and financial question that it's going to be extremely expensive of not overcoming hunger, of not tackling the next pandemic, of not restoring natural reserves, of not challenging global warming. It's just going to be far too expensive of not doing anything. And this is why we think the financial sector is probably the game changer in this entire sustainability debate. And if you look at it from a historical perspective, I'm involved in this since over 35 years. We've been discussing in sustainability population growth issues, technology, governance, lifestyle changes, from veggie burger to driving a bike. It's fantastic. I love the veggie burgers at the Blockchains conferences 2 years ago. Very much. Yes. However, it's good for your karma. It's not necessarily good for the climate, because for the climate, we got to think out of the box. We got to get the right leverage, and the leverage is in the financial sector. It's not whether you drive a bike or not. It's good for your consciousness, but we need to get the big players on board. Good.
Let's talk about that a little bit more when we come back. We need to take a quick break, so thank you very much, Stefan. We'll come right back to that. It's time for us to take a little break, and we want to give you a little peek as to why you will want to be in person with us, and Stefan for that matter, in Hamburg, Germany at Blockchains 2021. I'm also going to give you more details on our Blockchains 2021 ticket giveaway. You can actually meet Stefan. I believe the conference is going to be December 2 through 4 in Hamburg. This ticket that we would like to give you is a raffle ticket worth one 3-day ticket worth €300 for the conference. And all you need to do to register for the raffle is to sign up and subscribe to the newsletter. So you can do that. And we're going to take a little quick video here and give you a little taste test of what's going to go on in December. Who owns your data? Who owns your money? Your future. We are approaching a new dawn. Blockchain technology. Artificial intelligence. Sustainability. Hamburg, Germany, 2021. Blockchains 2021. Hi, we're back. Thank you, everyone.
Wow.
Did you like that?
Yeah, wow.
It's going to be exciting, I can tell you that. Before we get back to our topic that we were just discussing before the break, I want to mention to everyone, first of all, you're welcome to put your questions into the Telegram or into the chat here. If you want to ask Stefan any questions, we can get to those. But I want to say, Stefan, congratulations on your book. You've just written a book that came out in April, is that right?
No, it's actually has been postponed. It's out. This is the book in the last slide of my presentation, the Financing Our Future. That's the book. That's the book. Maybe the
when is it available?
It's available since yesterday or today or
That's what you were saying. Okay. So it's called Financing Our Future, Unveiling a Parallel Digital Currency System to Fund the SDGs and the Common Good.
Yes. And
Excellent.
What I showed you in my little talk is a nutshell of the entire report.
Excellent. And congratulations.
We're launching now a special marketing campaign where we send out that book to each opinion leader in the world who has to say something in finance and money. Excellent. So they will get the book with a personal letter, and we have some special features for them.
Excellent. I love that idea. For those people who are interested in taking advantage of that, you can find it on Amazon. It's on hardcover and it's on ebook. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Congratulations on that. So let's go back to this whole idea of motivating people to think out of the box. I feel like this is a hot topic in general today. We've just lived through the last 15 months of a crazy time period, and people are still really struggling with getting out of the box and thinking in a different way and wanting desperately to get back to the way things were and all that stuff, kind of goes along with that, just that psychology of that thinking. I think what you're saying sounds awesome. I think everyone can agree that we want to all solve the 17 SDGs as quickly as possible. 18 months sounds amazing. We even talk about, solving world hunger even quicker. Those things sound great. How do we get people motivated to move towards this parallel thinking?
Well,
$1 million question.
The $1 million question, how to make the change, right?
Exactly.
It always has, I think, a personal individual level and a meso level and a macro level, right? On a macro level, it's about convincing politicians and executives, and on the local level, it's like Friday for Futures activists. Right. I'm personally more the top-down guy. I'm not the guy who goes on the streets with the board, and we need both bottom up and top down. And I'm more the top down guy. So I'm personally addressing executives, investors, and political decision makers, and I'm asking them the simple question: if you want SDGs to happen, tell me, where should the money come from to make them happen?
Right.
Within the next years, 5 trillion every year additional liquidity. So not only shoveling from here to there, but additional liquidity to finance SDGs. Where does the money come from? Quick, fast, and targeted. And if you're not convinced by the answer you're getting from officials or from activists, you might remember the short talk I just gave you 15 minutes ago. This is where the answer is.
Okay. You gave it, actually, there's a presentation that you made to the UN. I'm not sure when it was. It's actually on YouTube if people want to Google it and look it up. It's a great speech that you made there as well. And you talked about being ready to solve global hunger or world hunger in a very short amount of time. Isn't that enough to motivate people?
Yeah, let's look at these first two goals, right?
Right. Let's do that.
Hunger and poverty. Okay, we can always silo it down, but let's look at the first two goals. But at the end, everything is linked to everything. But let's look at the first two goals, and let's look at the first two goals from a financial perspective. right? Overcoming hunger means having 1,500 calories a day. Okay, this is medical, this is basic, right? So how can we overcome that? And you need roughly about $2 on purchasing power a day per capita to make that happen. A digital parallel smart contract algorithm blockchain associated system providing to everybody the $2 can overcome that. The devil is in the detail, because there's one additional kind of public-private partnership, financial engineering necessary, which is called advanced commitment strategy. But at its core, that's what's needed. Africa is much higher digitalized than Europe, for example.
Right.
So you can send the $2 extra on everybody which is eligible and authorized to get the $2. And if you make sure with the so-called advanced, now it's getting technical, I'm sorry, but I'm an academic.
It's okay.
I cannot overcome that. If you ensure that the public authorities make a so-called private-public partnership with the private sector, that the volume and the price for the future goods and services to overcome poverty will not rise, and the private sector has the advantage of selling their products over the next 2 or 3 years, you need this advanced commitment strategy. You can overcome, in a region of interest, poverty and hunger in 18 months and less. It's a technical problem. It's a logistical and technical problem. Okay, and you create this additional liquidity, for example, through developing banks, let's say through the World Bank, that create that additional, let's call it the green dollar, Molly, okay?
Okay.
Let's say the World Bank creates this additional dollars and uses this to finance sub-Sahara poverty. And let's even say that only 60% of the project will be accomplished and a third will fail. Let's say, for whatever reason.
Okay.
So what do you think the World Bank has to do? They have to write off 30% of their balance sheet. So what? So what? But 60% of out of poverty. It's worth the time. Right?
We're still going forward.
Yeah. So this is the way we have to go through all these different different SDGs, and we've provided a couple of, I think, comprehensive new financial engineering to make that happen.
Great. Great. Something else that you mentioned on the UN talk that you gave was these different generations of the blockchain, specifically talking about blockchain now. And I'm completely out of my league here, so I will defer to you on this. What did you mean by that, in the sense of the blockchain that we know now?
Yeah, well, no, I mean the following. You know, I'm at INATBA on the academic advisory board, and first we have to distinguish between Bitcoin and blockchain. Bitcoin is not blockchain. It's the first thing.
Correct.
Bitcoin is a speculation tool. Blockchain is not necessarily. And then we have to identify which of the blockchain technologies have the least energy consumption with regard to power. Mm-hmm. And can the fastest transactions, like several 100,000 transactions per minute, okay, better than MasterCard or credit cards. And then it has to be semi-permissive. And semi-permissive means that the blockchain technology should find a proof of consent through an authorized body, because you want to make sure, Molly, that the money which is running through there is accepted to pay taxes and wages. You know, if like Libra and Facebook, or now the new one, the DM from Facebook, they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create a private parallel currency system, right? And if you speak to them, they're smart people, and they get the point. They don't want to become bankers. They want to become central bankers, right? Creating money and then creating a private marketplace. And the point, technically, it's not a bad idea. practically, we have to be aware that if we want that, we are going to privatize a substantial part of our future. And this works for some of the SDGs, but not for the majority of it. You cannot privatize water. You cannot privatize a natural resource. And you cannot privatize fully education and access to hospitals. And you cannot privatize breathing fresh and clean air, right? So the public sector plays an important role to balance out private initiatives. So I'm not arguing against private initiatives. I'm just saying you have to balance that out in a way that makes sense.
What's the best case scenario for the next step?
The best case scenario for the next step is, which is going to happen, but I'm not mentioning any names, right?
Ooh,
and it's
secrets.
That you're going to speak informally again with central bankers. And at the link, the point is, it's because it's out of, it's at the link between central banks and the Ministry of Finance. Okay? You got to identify the right people at the Ministry of Finance in Europe and at the central bank. And if you get them together, and you need only about, for Europe, let's say Europe, you need for Europe about, at the most, 35 people in one room.
How doable is that?
Well, 35, let's say 50 people, not more.
Okay.
And for the investor field, you need not more than 80 in one room.
Okay.
They are holding the whole thing in their hand. So it's not going to be a big show. It's not going to be a big marketing public event, but these are the strings we try to pull, and we try to address them because they both are lacking. That's the point. They both, political sector and the investor sector, they both are lacking a real alternative. That's the point. I'm happy to give up my entire initiative if you tell me someone who says, well, I can provide 5 trillion every year for the next 15 years to finance SDGs, and that's fine, that's fine. But I've been grilled over 5 years in different academic and political settings now, in hundreds of talks and background discussions, et cetera, et cetera. And this, or very similar mechanism to this, is probably the most comprehensive to do so.
It's really good, the work that you're doing. Thank you for doing that. You know, I thought we would have more questions, but I'm just seeing on the screen just thumbs up and smiley faces. And so you're getting lots of support, no questions. Is there any last thing you want to leave us with? That was a pretty good.
The point is, I have an academic background, and the peers I'm speaking right now are more startups and people who are interested in blockchain, and it's wonderful. And they sometimes get a little bit intimidated by academics. And the message is, don't get intimidated by academics. Ask right questions. And if you ask, this is what I'm saying to my students, I have to give the answers. You have to come up with really good questions. And there's nothing wrong of having a good question out there, right?
Absolutely.
But that's fine. It's fine. I'm happy.
Good, good. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Stefan. Really appreciate it. Great information that you've given all of us. And so we thank you very much for that. I also want to thank you, the audience, for being here. Thank you for joining us. And also to the BlockChance team who's running around here on this very hot day in Hamburg. I want to thank you for also inviting me to be here with you. Don't forget that you can catch a recording of this on YouTube. The link will be displayed here for you, and you can continue the discussion on Telegram. We'd be happy for you to continue this chat when Stefan and I take our sign off here. Let me just tell you quickly, the next BlockChance online live show is going to be July the 7th, and you will have your wonderful host, Sönke Nisfeld, here with Mark Friedrich, who is the best-selling author of The Greatest Reset. So you won't want to miss that, all right? Thank you all so much. Stefan, thank you once again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I would like to
thank you for having me. And now everybody should enjoy the beer garden and the pool or the football tonight.
Absolutely. Post to that. Thank you, everybody. Good night.